So the latest news out of Lenawee County in Michigan is that the remains of Dee Warner have finally been found on her husband's property. I'll talk more on that in just a moment. So, for those of you who are not familiar with the Dee Warner case, Dee Warner was 52 back in April of 2021, April 25th, 2021, when she was reported missing by her adult children. The day before, so on April the 24th, she had sent her 9-year-old daughter to spend some time with family members because it was her intention to end her marriage with her husband Dale, and she didn't want her daughter to be exposed to any nastiness that might have come out of that. The thing with their marriage is that there was a DV situation. He was known to be violent with her, and the other side of it is that they had assets worth quite a lot of money, including a trucking company. So they were worth a couple of $1 million at the least. There had been no sign of Dee since her disappearance in April 2021. I believe that the family finally had her declared dead, I think it was early this year, and they held a memorial service for her in April of this year. Now, most people had suspected that her husband was responsible, and we all know that when it comes to DV situations, that leaving, that is the most risky of times ever when you leave someone. And sadly, Dee was not to know that when you leave someone from a DV situation, you're better off just quietly leaving and not communicating with them over the fact that you are leaving, because that's when you are putting yourself at risk. So, like I said, people in the area suspected Dale all along, and her family was quite instrumental in pushing the investigation further. They had a world-class lawyer by the name of Billy Little become involved, and through him there was a lot of investigation that was done. So let's talk about the discovery of Dee Warner. So it was announced that her remains had been found on a property owned by Dale on Paragon Road, and the guy is evil to the core, seriously, because what he had done was that he had cut open an old anhydrous ammonia tank where he had then interred her remains. He had then subsequently welded it shut, obviously sanded back the welds, and I'll say why I'm saying obviously in a little while, and then resprayed the tank, and then it was just sat out the back of the property. So for those of you who perhaps like me didn't know what anhydrous ammonia was, it's a fertiliser used for corn crops. So if you've followed this case at all, you would have heard talk about there being video footage of him going into the fertiliser shed after Dee's disappearance, and I'll come back to that shortly. So in last November, Dale Warner was actually finally arrested for his wife's death and is currently in Lenawee County Jail. His pre-trial hearing is set to begin on September 4th in the Lenawee County Court. So the timing is kind of perfect. It seems like karma was just stepping in there and saying, let's just help things out a little bit here. Because I'm thinking this guy probably thought that her remains would never be found. I do recall early on in the case him claiming that he believed that she'd gone to some island overseas, some tropical island in another country. So how did they find her? Well, it comes down to her brother, Greg Hardy, had a conversation with the investigators regarding her case. And he remembered, after a conversation with them, something which led them to her remains. So they were discussing with him about having gotten hold of video footage of him entering the fertiliser shed with welding equipment. And for Greg Hardy, this triggered a memory. He remembered seeing Dale sanding and painting an old anhydrous tank in the sprayer barn not long after Dee went missing. And as they say, the rest is history. So it sounds like this guy is going down. There is so much evidence against him, and I think this is going to be a trial worth watching, because I think we are going to see a glimpse of someone who is pure evil. I feel sad for the daughter. She would now be 12 or 13, and to have lost her mother and to now have to go through this whole thing of her father being convicted for her mother's murder and him going to trial. But thankfully she also has those older half-siblings who can support her through all this. So I will be covering this case when it goes to trial. It's one that I have followed from early days, from the time that Billy Little became involved. So I am interested in following it through to conclusion. So I hope you will follow it with me.